everybody. Welcome to my sweet home living. My name is Tracy Campbell, and we are outside today. Going to giving you all kinds of tips and tricks on how to master self-watering containers. How many of you have bought a self-watering container before and only to realize that maybe they must be lying to you? There is a little trick to self-watering containers, and so I'm going to be here with you live today for the next 45 minutes, helping take the mystery of how to get those self-watering containers to work the way you need them to work. How are you, Miss Dana? Hello, Anita. Hello, Miss Melanie. I apologize for missing out on earlier. 12:45, I had midweek check-in scheduled. I have been running around crazy today, and I just could not get on live. I had connection issues with where I was running errands today. We've had eye doctor appointment. We had to go to the UPS store. I had to run to Walmart. Everywhere under creation today. So I look like a hot mess, and it is hot here. It's almost 90 degrees here in my neck of the woods here in Northwest Kentucky, and it's warm. It's really warm, but I'm not complaining, but I am sweating. And the hair's pulled up because it's outdoor time. It is outdoor time. So y'all hop in here. Let me know you're here, where you're tuning in from. Listen, over in the Cry from the Clock group, I don't know if y'all have been missing it, or I hope you've been catching it, but we have two new series. One is called In the Sewing Room, and that's usually on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and some Sundays, we have some Garden Gal segments. And guess what? I'm your Garden Gal. For the next 45 minutes, I'm going to be showing you how to use these self-watering containers that I absolutely love, especially if you have some places that have extreme sun and extreme heat. These are lifesavers, especially if you combine them with the right plant combinations. Think we're gonna have a very hot summer? I think you could be right, Victoria. We've had a beautiful spring though. For the last month or so, it's been so nice. It's been so nice, but it's definitely heating up this week, and of course, it's bringing in the humidity. That's the that's the not so good thing. Good morning, Joy. Do you have self-watering containers? I love them too. My sister grabbed these self-watering containers, and I'll show you the containers. You may have seen me. I may have shown these to you before. But I talked my sister into getting these, and she's not usually the one that goes and gets all the plants and stuff, but I've kind of been teaching her some things along the way, or answering her questions, I should say. I do not have my mic on today because I'm going to be kind of moving around way too much, and so if you have trouble hearing me, let me know. I'll speak up. I have no problem being really loud. I'm a former school teacher, so I can use my teacher voice if I really need to. But she bought these, and she was like, I have no idea what I'm doing wrong, but my plants are dying in these self-watering containers. You buy them thinking, okay, well, this is the answer to all of my problems on how to grow plants and flowers. But she's like, something's wrong. What's happening? And I said, I bet I know what you did wrong. And I'm going to show you what these are. So you all take a look at this planter right here. Okay. Now, I've got some things. I've got my shovel right here beside it, but this is kind of like my little workstation right now. And once I get it planted, I'll move these containers to different parts around the porches and outside of the house where I want them. But right now, this is kind of where I've got my plants stationed and where we've got shade and cover. And so this is just kind of like my little potting area, if you will. Hey, Miss Regina, glad to have you here. These self-watering containers, I grabbed mine at Sam's Club several years ago, but they are still available in lots of different places. You can probably even find them on Amazon, okay? They come in lots of colors, usually a black or white. Sometimes there's a different color. I've seen a red before too, but they are so easy to use. But let me tell you something. If yours come with directions, follow the directions. But sometimes they don't have directions with them. And there is something very important that you have to know if you don't have the directions. It does have to drain. Now, self-watering containers, a lot of times they can be a wicking type self-watering container, or it can be something kind of similar to this. Now, this one, I still have some of my old plants material in this one, okay? And I'm going to pull this out in a minute and show you. But the trick to these is you have to have a drainage hole for your excess water to overflow, okay? It has a reservoir in the bottom of this container. So if you look, this container, it's pretty tall. So it's almost, I mean, it's up to the top, you know, mid-thigh on me, okay? I usually use these in around my entryways or at the top of stairs or at the bottom of stair landing, anywhere where I kind of need like some entryway cuteness, okay? And so the bottom half of this, never mind the dust and cobwebs, I have not even cleaned it off since last year. But the bottom half of this container is the water reservoir that holds the water, okay? Now, why doesn't the water go all the way up to the top? You don't want it to go all the way to the top because it will flood your plants. Plants like water, just like us. We need water. But if we drink too much, it's not a good thing. Same with your plants. If you overwater them, they're going to die. Unless they are a swamp variety of flower. Okay? They gotta have air. If you put too much water on them, their roots will rot. Okay? They will rot and they will die. The plants, you got it, Jenny. You got it. Root rot. So, when you get these, there is a spot, okay, right here at the top of this square. I would pick it up, but it's absolutely heavy. There is a spot where you are supposed to drill a hole. Like a tiny hole, like the size of like maybe, I'm going to say maybe 1/8 of an inch diameter hole, okay? Drill it on two sides. One on maybe the front side and one on the back side, or wherever, just two of them. Start with two, okay? And that's going to allow your self-watering containers to leak out the overflow, okay? Now, how does it water your plants? How does it water your plants? Because your plants are planted up here and your water is down there at the bottom. You have to establish your plant's root system first. And once they get established, it's kind of like training your plant roots. You're training your roots to search and grow in the direction towards the water. And roots can do that. Did you know that they can sense where water is? Okay? They know. They can sense it. And so once those plants get established, which means you have to kind of water them, you kind of have to baby them a little bit for a few weeks, but once they really get going and rolling, their roots are going to go down in close enough to where the water, to where they can go down and take drinks, okay, without sitting completely in water, okay? So let me show you. I'm just going to pull out this big root chunk of this plant that I had last year. Let me show you what this plant is real quick. That plant right there is what's left over from this plant that I started last year, okay? This is called a Prince Tut. You all heard me talk about this plant before. I absolutely love it. I use this as my thriller or my center focal point of my container, okay? And it's just a showstopper. It doesn't bloom, but it looks so pretty. It's got these little pom-poms at the top. Now, this plant absolutely loves water. In fact, I want to say this is native to Egypt, possibly. I don't know if it'll tell me on here. I've looked it up before. I think it's native to somewhere, possibly even to somewhere where the Nile River is. I don't know. Somewhere foreign to me. However, it grows near water. And believe it or not, fly on me. Believe it or not, these were used to make baskets. You can cut these stalks and dry them, and they are used in weaving and making baskets, okay? Think of, no, I'm not even going to go there. Anyway, but these love water, and so these roots always make it down to the bottom of my container here, and they have a heyday. But now all of the other plants that I put in with this are all heat-loving and sun-loving plants that that like sun and heat, and so it's a good kind of combination. So I'm going to show you everything that I'm putting in this container. That way, if you want to copy this exact planting arrangement, you'll know what to use. And this fly is going to drive me crazy. So you can see here, I usually have to have my husband help me do this job when I clean out these containers every year. But this plant that started out so tiny, I want you to look at the massive, this is the what I cut off. At the end of the fall, I cut that off. And those roots, would you believe, that is the root system that was developed in that container, okay? Now, you can even see, I don't know if you can see now because I've shaken it around a little bit. You can even see the indentation of the design of the container in this root ball, okay? Now, that container stops about right here, okay? But those roots, there are roots go through, there's a little tray sitting in the middle of this container. And I don't know if I'll be able to pull it out because you guys won't be able to see. Let me see if I can. No, it's buried down in there. Think of a brownie pan. Okay, it looks like a black brownie pan sitting in the center. It's like a tray. You just sit it down in there. It has holes in it. Okay, and that is kind of what holds your dirt. That separates your dirt from your water reservoir, okay? It has holes in it, which allows the roots, once they get established, it allows the roots to kind of find their way through those holes down into the water reservoir. But the key point is it keeps the dirt from sitting in water, okay? So that tray is super important. So if you get one of these self-watering containers, you have to use that tray. If you don't use the tray, then you're going to be filling up this giant container with potting soil, and you will not have the self-watering feature. You will have the self-flooding and self-dying feature. Get it? Okay. You got to have the tray. You got to have the drainage holes. All right? So, once you get that tray in there, you're going to fill it up with potting soil, all right? Now, I have tons of flower roots that are still in here. I'm not going to refill this whole container with brand new soil. I'm just not, because potting soil is way too expensive. I'm just going to break it apart and use this in the bottom half of my container. If I still have some dead stumps from other plants, that's fine. It's organic material. It's going to eventually break down. I'm okay, because this is basically going to act as sort of like a filler. So old potting soil in the bottom part of the dirt section, okay? The top part of the dirt section, I'm going to put some fresh new soil in. So here's what I'm using. Let me clear my walkway here. Show you what I grabbed. I always try to get somewhat in the middle grade of potting mix. Nothing like your nose tickling when you have dirty hands, right? Hey, Miss Karen. I usually try to go in the middle. I don't go super expensive, but I don't go cheap either, because a lot of times I find that if I go with cheap potting mix, it's too light, it's too airy, and it doesn't hold enough moisture, for one. Or it's chocked full of like bark and wood chips, which too definitely don't help in adding moisture to your plant root system. But it takes twice as much, okay? So I go in the middle. I don't get Miracle-Gro, although I love Miracle-Gro potting mix. It just doesn't fit my budget, okay? Now, I go with this right here. Sometimes I go with, there's a brand called Scott's, I think. I've used that before with really good results. What I grabbed this year is the Expert Gardener potting mix. It's already enriched with fertilizer, like self-release fertilizer. That's what I like. I mean, if you get a potting mix, you got to make sure that it has some self-release fertilizer in it, okay? Annuals are one and done. Perennials come back each year. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Miss Dana. You're so right. So And by leaving some of that old potting mix in there, this is going to cut down on how much dirt, new dirt you're going to have to buy or add, okay? Now, I will say, I would not fill this pot completely up yet. I'm going to fill it about 2/3 of the way. And then we're going to place our plants, and then we'll finish filling it after we get all the plants placed in there. Now, I will say that this mix does have a little bit of wood chip material in it. See, like that right there? Like mulch. It almost looks like mulch pieces, but it's not too bad. I'm going to start with my centerpiece, which is, this is Proven Winners, which I love the brand of Proven Winners. I don't know, let me see. Get my dirty hands out of the way. This, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. It is called Prince Tut. Graceful Grasses Prince Tut. It takes full to part sun. This variety gets 18 to 30 inches tall. You better believe it. Now, be careful because there are other varieties of this tut. There is a King Tut, and it gets ginormous. If you put it in a pot, it's gonna take over and like run everything else out. Okay, but fair warning, I do like to plant my pots really full. Okay, meaning I have lots of plants in it, and I feed them with fertilizer all summer long. Because what's in this potting mix is not going to last me all summer because of the magnitude of plant varieties that I put in here, okay? All right. This one, I could put it right in the center. But I think I'm going to put this container, I'm trying to think where I am going to put this container. I usually put these up against a wall, but you all know I've moved lately, and so I've got different placement for everything. In some pots, I don't even know where I'm putting them yet. So I will probably put this in the back of my container. That way, if I place it up against a wall or up against the stair rail, this tall piece will be in the back center part of it. If you're putting this like somewhere in the middle of, let's say, a patio area in the middle or around a pool area, a poolscape, you might want to also put it in the middle and then plant all the way around it. This is going in the back for me, okay? Let me turn this around because I know where my watering holes are, and so now when I place that in, I want to make sure that the crown of my plant root ball is below the rim of this container, okay? So when I put it in, I want to make sure that it is sitting below that rim, because when I water, if I don't, all my water is going to roll out like a top flow of a waterfall over the top, and it's not going to soak into the dirt, okay? So I'm putting that in the center right there. Now, I don't have all of the plants that I normally plant in the summer or in the spring this year as I normally do, so I'm kind of working with what I got. Although these are pretty much the same types of flowers that I have, I don't have all of my flowers yet. I usually make about 4 trips to the garden nursery every spring. I've made 2. I've made 2, so I have about half of what I normally have so far. So I'm going to put a geranium in. This is a red geranium. Usually I kind of like to pick a color scheme and stick with it. Usually I kind of go with red, yellow, and purple. Yeah, red, yellow, and purple. Sometimes mix in a little bit of pink. Now, I took my daughter with me this last weekend to the nursery, and she threw a curveball at me and made me pick out all kinds of pink flowers. I'm like, Gracie, it doesn't fit my color scheme. I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll go with some pink. So we're throwing in some pink this year, and heck with it. We're just going to have a hodgepodge of colors. That's okay. Love geraniums. I do too, Miss Mary. These are from one of my local nurseries. I always like to support my local nurseries. I usually make at least 3 big trips to my local nurseries, and then I pick up some, orphaned plants at the Lowe's clearance section 2 or 3 times, a season as well. So, but now these, have you ever seen geranium leaves that big already? I mean, these are starts. And they are just super healthy, and they will grow ginormous, and the root or the flower balls on these get massive. So I know these are going to fill up. I know they're going to give me beautiful greenery. And look at the combination. Look at the combination. Even if they're not blooming, you have this grassy, spiky looking flower in combination with this real pretty and variated color of leaf right there. That's a beautiful combination in itself, just with the greenery. So think about that. If your flowers aren't blooming yet, go for just differences in leaves as well, okay? Now, I don't know how full I'm going to plant this just yet. We're just going to kind of eyeball it and go with it. My next favorite that I always plant in one of these containers is verbena. I've showed you all verbena before. Let's see. Verbena comes in tons of different colors. I mean tons. So it can fit any kind of color scheme you go with. I love this purple and white. And there's Gracie's pink that she picked out. But it comes in yellow, comes in corals, comes in dark purples, light purples, comes in some stripes. I mean, tons of different options. But I know that geranium is a red. So I'm gonna go with this dark purple. This is so cool. Love this color right here. Let's see what color this is. This is called Black Velvet. That's kind of weird. Black Velvet, even though it's purple. But it is just a deep, it does look like velvet because of the color. The way the color is on the little blooms, they're so cool. So cool. Hey, Miss Karen, how are you? You love verbena too, Tanya? It's just so fun. And it is super easy to grow. It's super drought tolerant. And it will tell you, when it's thirsty. How do you know? Well, the leaves get a little bit droopy, okay? And sometimes the flowers will start to kind of just do this. It'll go, wow. And then it's like, hey, I need water. Now, what this does also need is when these bloom heads are finished blooming, I do deadhead them. And what I mean by deadhead is I just pinch the stem off right at the base of that root or that flower ball, okay, and pinch it off. And what that does is it starts to send out new shoots on the side, which you can already see right there on this one. There's 2 new shoots, and it'll grow and grow and grow. This trails over the edge beautifully. This daggone fly is like insistent on eating me alive. Your favorite thing to do is work in your yard and your plants. Oh, Miss Kathy, I love it too, especially in the spring when it's cool. Get them all set up, and that way you beat the heat. Hey, Miss Charlotte and Denise. So this is gonna go on the side in the front corner. Okay, right there. So I know I have a red and a purple together, and those are sort of semi-complementary colors. And so I know that those will pair well when they bloom. They'll look really pretty together. Now, on this front corner, I want another trailing plant, okay? And one of my other favorites, let me show you the plant card here, Super Bells. Don't be confused with Supertunias, okay? Because they look almost identical to Supertunias. I think Supertunias have to be deadheaded a lot, and I don't have time to deadhead every flower in my containers. I just don't. And I have a love-hate relationship with petunias because they're really pretty in the beginning, and then they kind of get fizzled out and they get all bare and ugly at the base of a plant, and I don't know. I just don't like them as much later in the summer. So these Super Bells, however, think of these, they look like a little mini petunia, okay? They come in tons of different colors. In fact, let me show you a couple of the other colors that I grabbed. These are real fun because, I told you Gracie made me pick out a bunch of pink. Look at those. Are those not the sweetest? That one is called Coralina. That's the name of the color of those, but these are Super Bells, but they come in tons of colors. So you'll have to look for those. Let's see. Here's another really neat one. This one is called Watermelon Punch. Okay, so I got to show you the full bloom. Look down in the inside of those. Are those not the prettiest? Yes. This fly keeps biting me. I'm going to have to grab my bug spray or something. Here's a purple. This one is called Plum. But look down in the center of those. Aren't those pretty? And then I have one more. This one is very similar to that other one. This one is called Coral Sun, whereas the other one was called Coralina. This one has a little bit more of a peachy yellow that's visible in those. But these get ginormous. They trail beautifully down the side of my containers. And they love the heat and they love the sun. In my previous house where we moved from, I had these containers sitting in the front of a shed building that we had, but regardless, it was sitting in full sun right next to a black asphalt driveway. And they survived all summer long. And if they can survive that kind of heat and intense sun, you know it can survive anywhere if you just make sure that you keep water in your reservoir of your container. You love Super Bowls, Kim? I do too. I do too. I do know that I forgot to grab, I usually always plant sweet potato vine in this pot as well. And I forgot to bring it over here with me. Alright, so I'm going to plant this in the other front corner. So I've got two trailers here on the front corner. And then I've got a tall spike in the middle in the back. I've got a geranium over here, and I need something else right here. I usually put my sweet potato vine right there. That's what I'm missing. I'll tell you what. My sweet potato vine is not, I am going to save room for it because it just trails over and goes everywhere. And it's another one of those heat-loving, drought-tolerant plants as well. But I'm going to plant this salvia right in the center. And it will kind of compete with this a little bit. And right now it's probably taller. Yeah, it is a little bit taller. Let me think about this. What do I normally put? I usually have a lantana. I do not have a lantana yet. I know what we can use. Hang on. I've got some New Guinea impatiens that we can put right there in the center. Let's do that. And they won't get too tall. I'm afraid that salvia, it's a variety that gets really, really tall. I don't have the real short salvia like I normally do yet. So I'm probably going to put two of these in the center. And then I might take y'all with me to get that sweet potato vine in a minute. It's back by my chicken coop. I've been doing some planting back there. I'm going to put those in the center. And they are small right now, but they will get big and they will fill up the space perfect. Okay? So they will get a little bushy. And when they get bushy, they're going to fill in the gaps. They're going to fill in the gaps here, here, and here. And so that'll be a little mound of pink there. We'll have the purple and the yellow and then a red back here. I just need that sweet potato vine and then we'll fill it up. So let's go grab the sweet potato vine. Y'all come with me. Here we go. We are going to go back here. I'm taking y'all to the backyard. Let's see what we can find. You might hear Pongo bark. I left him in the house today, right now, because it's super hot out here and I knew he would be sitting in the sun. So, let's get my sweet potato vine because it needs to be planted. It's been sitting out here in this little area for a while. The chicks are just hanging out. Let's see. Right here is what I need. Oh, I know what else I needed. We might just grab several plants back here. I know. These little wishbone flowers. I've been wanting to use one of those. We might be able to stick one of those in there too. Let's see. I think that's it. Let's head back to the flower planting station. I can't see your comments right now. In the full sun, it's kind of hard to see them. Okay. It is hot tamale out here. It's humid. It's not, I mean, it's warm, but it's humid, and that makes it worse. Okay. I've got to set up my little water garden soon, too. I may do that with y'all next week. Or maybe this weekend. Okay. Let me put y'all back on the phone stand. There you go. Had a little trip around the yard. Around the side of the house, anyway. Okay. Look at those. I think that would be really pretty in there, too. But that's not going to go in that one, but that one might go in my next pot. I'm going to put this sweet potato vine. Oh my gracious. This thing gets ginormous, and it goes down like a waterfall over the edge of my plant, or my container. It will go all the way down to the ground, and it will go out even that far. So if you don't have a huge space for that, you might want to, you can trim it, and you can trim it and still keep it really pretty right there. Now that just adds a beautiful, like a chartreuse green color right there. And I think that's it. What am I thinking here? You know what I'm thinking? Here's my brain right now. This yellow plant that's in the corner is very similar to this yellowish green color. So I'm going to swap my colors here. I'm going to swap this yellow and this purple. There we go. Now, check out that purple against that chartreuse green. And this yellow is going to be paired with this red geranium when it blooms, and it's going to work out perfect. That'll be a happy marriage. And we'll have those two New Guinea impatiens right there in the center. I think that's it. Let's fill it up. Let's fill it up. And I'm going to use this little container. Because if I just dump the dirt on it, it's going to break some of those stems off, and I don't want to do that. So we've got lots of little open areas to fill in. Now, once you get this filled up, all right, you get the gist. You're going to fill it up. Once you get it filled up, what you're going to want to do is water it really good. Water it really good. Let it sit for a little bit, okay? Now, when you're doing this, when you first set up your self-watering container, it's going to be empty. It's in the bottom. You're not going to have any water in the reservoir yet, right? So as you're watering your plants on a every other day basis, okay, maybe. Some of you may have to do it every day. But when that dirt is dry to the touch, if you can stick your fingers in that dirt, let me show you something. Okay. Here's a clump that came out of that potting soil bag, okay? If you can stick your fingers in that dirt, and if you pick up a little pinch of it, and it crumbles and falls like, I want to say powder, but it's not quite as fine as powder, but if it crumbles apart into small pieces when it's falling back down, then your soil probably needs some water, okay? Now, however, if you, let me show you another example. Look in this container. If I stick my fingers down in here and I pick up this dirt and I can squeeze it and I can feel water in it, then it doesn't need any water, okay? Let it be. Let it sit for a day. And let it, let those roots take up more of the water. Now, there will be days when you don't have to water them, okay? But whenever you're doing this, and let's say I'm going to say probably the first 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Okay, what you're doing, every time you water, you're wetting the soil, and that soil is absorbing what it needs at that moment, okay? And what happens in these self-watering containers, the excess water that it doesn't need is going to trickle down into the water reservoir. Over time, over those 2 or 3 weeks, that water reservoir at the bottom is going to continually fill, okay? Continually fill little by little until it reaches its max level, okay? The max level Let me move this bag of dirt. This max level of water on this container is as high as I drill my drainage hole. So if I drill my drainage hole right here, that's where it's supposed to be, that's as high as my water is going to get in that reservoir. How do you know if your water reservoir is full? Well, if you're watering your flowers and you start to see little streams of water come out of those drainage holes, then you know your water reservoir is full, okay? And you can stop watering. While if you're out watering that day, it starts, spewing water out of the drainage hose. You say, okay, I'm taking the water off, I'm done, okay? Now, does that mean that you can, forget about your flowers for a week? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you can water less frequently, okay? And there are still times when I may have to water every day. In the absolute peak of the summer heat, I will still probably have to water every day. However, I do know that what's happening is when I do water them and they dry out before, I water them the next day, or maybe I forget to water them a day, that water reservoir is still there for them to access with their roots when they need it. Because a lot of times they will dry out quicker than I can get to them to water them again. So it just kind of helps expand the livelihood of your flowers. And it also helps to make sure that they have a continuous water source, and it helps them grow bigger and more lush through the summer season, rather than relying solely on you to water them, okay? Now, what I also do sometimes, whenever, let's say I will let this dry out, okay, really good. Maybe I'll skip 2 days in between watering if they can make it. I will mix up a water solution with Miracle-Gro, and I will water them really good, okay? And what happens is that extra Miracle-Gro fertilized water will go down into the reservoir, and you guessed it, I'm adding some fertilizer to that water reservoir that they can have access to throughout the coming days, okay? So I love these self-watering containers, and once you get one and figure it out, you'll want multiples of them, because they make it so easy and so user-friendly. So if you're watering these and you start to see water standing in your dirt, then you know you have forgotten to drill your drainage holes, or maybe your drainage holes aren't big enough. You might have to drill, 4 drainage holes instead of just 2. Mine work on 2 drainage holes, and I know that when I'm watering them, if the water starts spewing out, I turn the water off, okay? So, and this will grow ginormous. This little arrangement right here that I have, it will probably quadruple in size at the end of the summer. A lot of times I put a little solar planter, or not solar, they're not solar because I plugged them in, a dusk to dawn garden light system throughout my little walkways and garden areas, and I stick a little solar light there in the center, so that you can, even if you're sitting out on the patio, you still get to enjoy the colors of your flowers at night, when it's dark, when you're out, if maybe you're having friends over or enjoying some outdoor entertaining, you still have that light source and you can still enjoy your flowers at night as well. So, let's see who's here. Let's see. I'm missing some comments. Do you water early morning and evening? Good question. You either water early morning or late in the evening, or both, depending on your climate. Never, ever, ever water in the middle of the day. Like right now would be the worst time to water your flowers, because here's why. You're going to fill them up with some water, and guess what? The sun's going to soak it all right back up like that, okay? So that the roots don't have enough time to really drink up that water like it needs to. And the other part of that is, if you get water on your leaves, you're going to scorch. You're going to actually burn the leaves. Same if you're planting a yard full of new grass seed. never ever water your lawn in the middle of the day. When the sun is up hot and high, never water anything. Unless you have to. Like if my plants out here right earlier were drooping when I got home, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to give them some water. If you have to, give them some water, but make sure you keep the water below the leaves and on the dirt only. And if you can, move the container to some shade for a little while, okay? But now let's say you can't move the container, that's okay. Just water the dirt. Don't get it on the leaves, but you will probably have to water again in the evening because that water that you're giving them for an instant pick-me-up is not going to last very long, okay? But I usually water mine on an every afternoon basis. Like before dinner or after dinner, I come outside and get everything watered. And so that it has about an hour or two before dark to dry, the leaves to dry before, nightfall. That's the best time to water. Let's see. That's right. Before the sun, Miss Mary. You're right. You're in Southeast Texas, and it's best to water early in the morning. I bet you're right. Early or late in the evening. That way your plants overnight have that cool time at night to enjoy that moisture in their root system. And you probably have to water both early morning and late at night. Let's see. I'm missing some questions. Your first time planting geraniums in flower boxes. Will they multiply? Good question, Laurie. Geraniums do not multiply, okay? But they do get really big. The best thing for geraniums is to make sure that once the bloom is done, is that you cut the stem that bloom is on, okay? And that way that plant can take its energy towards putting out new stalks of blooms for you, new stems of blooms for you. Let's see. Hey, Miss Gail, you caught me. You sure did. It's weird because I got to tilt my eyes a certain direction so I can see this. The combination colors are going to be pretty. Yes, I love these color combinations. You can't go wrong. I mean, if you like all colors, just plant what makes you happy, right? Just plant what makes you happy. You're going to be the one that's going to be seeing them every day more than anybody else. But once you kind of get the gist of what you got and you know what flowers you like, you can stick with it and get the same ones every year. And that's what I do. Use different color combinations with the different ones. But now these are all plants. These are annuals, so they're only here for, this year, and once winter comes, they will not come back next year. But I love them. I get them planted early, and make sure you keep them watered and fed throughout the summer, and you can enjoy them for months. And so for me, it's my outdoor decorating, and I love it. So it's just something I enjoy. And so if you're just starting out and you want to try one of these self-watering containers, check Amazon, get you one, and it will make things easy. Kind of now that you know like the tips and tricks on how to do it, it will definitely make things a lot easier for you. So it takes the guesswork out of when to water, or if you forget to water, or they can get extra water when they need to, And all of these plants that I've used today, they're pretty obvious. They will tell me when they need to be watered. So you all, thank you so much for being here with me today. We do have an event that's going on Saturday over in the Craft on the Clock group. Starts at 7:45 a.m. It's a combination event with Paint Pixie products and digital deco designs, I believe. And so I think there are 20 or more creatives that are scheduled all day Saturday. So if you're hanging out indoors Saturday, or maybe in the evening, you can catch the replays. They'll all be pinned in the featured section over there in that group. But thank you so much for joining me. Our next Garden Gals episode will be airing tomorrow evening on Craft on the Clock TV page. Miss Shayna from Frame It and Contain It, she's going to be here for a full hour answering your gardening questions. She is a master gardener and so talented and knowledgeable. If you've got questions on how to grow things or what's wrong with your garden, tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central, and she will be there to answer your questions for you. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.